What you're about to read is one of the most jaw-dropping true stories that most people have never heard of. Not a movie, not a thriller novel, a real teenager, a real nuclear reactor, a real neighborhood in Michigan that was quietly contaminated while nobody had any idea. Stay with me, because this one is going to shake you. Welcome to History Vale. Before we get into it, if you're new here, this channel is where we dig into the stories that history tried to bury. The ones that are too strange, too dark, or too uncomfortable for a school textbook. Hit that subscribe button because what we cover here you genuinely will not find packaged like this anywhere else. Now let's get into it. His name was David Hahn, and in 1994 he was 17 years old, living in a quiet suburb called Commerce Township in Michigan. From the outside he looked like any other teenager. Awkward, a little obsessive, the kind of kid who spent too much time alone in his room. But what David was doing in that room, and later in a backyard shed, was something that nuclear physicists spend careers trying to understand. He was trying to build a breeder nuclear reactor, from scratch, in secret, using materials he bought, stole, and sweet-talked out of suppliers while pretending to be a scientist. And the terrifying part, he almost pulled it off. Let's go back to the beginning, because David's story doesn't start with nuclear physics. It starts with a Boy Scout merit badge. David was obsessed with the Boy Scouts. He took it seriously, more seriously than most adults take their careers. He had already earned over 20 merit badges, and he was chasing one for atomic energy. Now, for most kids, that badge meant reading a pamphlet and answering some questions. For David Hahn, it meant actually learning nuclear science. He devoured books. He wrote letters to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission pretending to be a physics teacher. He contacted universities. He got information from the American Nuclear Society. These institutions responded because on paper this kid sounded like a credible adult, and every piece of information he received just pulled him deeper. His mother had a potting shed in the backyard. That shed became his laboratory. Here's where it gets genuinely unnerving. To build a nuclear reactor, even a crude, dangerous one, you need radioactive material, and David figured out how to get it. He collected americium-241 from smoke detectors, the kind you can buy at any hardware store. He'd buy them, disassemble them, extract the tiny radioactive pellet inside, and stockpile the material. He purchased hundreds of smoke detectors over time, telling store clerks he needed them for a school project. They believed him. He extracted radium from antique clocks, the kind with glow-in-the-dark dials that used to be painted with actual radium paint. He got thorium from gas lantern mantles. He figured out that if you heat lantern mantles with a propane torch, you can process out the thorium. He acquired radioactive tritium from gunsight kits. Every source was something an ordinary person could legally purchase, and David worked out how to extract the radioactive components from all of them. He was doing this alone, in a shed, without protective equipment, without proper containment, without anyone knowing what he was actually doing. David's father lived separately from him, his parents were divorced, and his mother largely left him alone in the shed. Neighbors saw him going in and out. They thought he was just a weird kid with a science hobby. Nobody had any idea that the shed was becoming increasingly radioactive, that David was exposing himself to radiation on a daily basis, or that the contamination was slowly seeping beyond the shed's walls. He built something he called a neutron gun, a device meant to bombard material with neutrons, which is a step in the chain reaction process. He used his collected thorium and combined it with other materials to create what he hoped would function as a neutron source. He was working toward a reaction, a sustained nuclear reaction, in a residential neighborhood, and here is the detail that should make your skin crawl. At one point, David used a Geiger counter, a device that detects radiation, and realized the readings were spiking even 5 houses away from the shed. 5 houses. He was contaminating his neighbors without their knowledge. He was 17 years old, and he had turned a residential block in Michigan into a low-level radioactive zone. That's when something shifted in David. Even he got scared. He started trying to dismantle what he had built. He put pieces of his reactor into metal boxes and began driving around late at night, leaving bags of the material in different locations. In parking lots, dumpsters, random spots around the neighborhood. He was trying to get rid of the evidence before anyone found out, but someone noticed. In August of 1994, a neighbor saw David moving something suspicious in the middle of the night. They called the police, thinking maybe it was drug equipment or stolen goods. Officers stopped David, and when they searched the car, they found a toolbox wrapped in aluminum foil. David told them it was radioactive and not to open it. The police called the EPA. The EPA called the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And what followed was a response that usually gets reserved for industrial accidents. Hazmat teams arrived in Commerce Township. They tested the backyard shed. They found radiation levels more than 1,000 times higher than normal background radiation. The shed was so contaminated that it had to be dismantled and disposed of as radioactive waste. 47 barrels of contaminated material were removed from the site. The EPA classified the entire cleanup as a Superfund project, the same designation given to industrial toxic waste sites. David Hahn was a teenager, and he had created a Superfund site in a suburban backyard. He was never charged with a crime. The authorities decided that prosecuting a 17-year-old Boy Scout was more trouble than it was worth, and that the cleanup was the priority. David was released. He went on to enlist in the Navy. He tried to put his past behind him, but the story didn't end there, and this is the part that's genuinely heartbreaking. In 2007, David Hahn was arrested in Michigan, not for nuclear anything, but for stealing smoke detectors from his apartment building. He was 31 years old. His face was covered in sores. His hair was falling out. The years of radiation exposure had left physical marks that were unmistakable to anyone who knew what they were looking at. The man who had once outsmarted regulatory agencies and university scientists was now barely holding himself together. Journalists who tracked him down found him withdrawn, confused, unwilling to talk about his past. He showed signs of physical deterioration that was almost certainly tied to his years of radiation exposure during his teenage experiments. He gave a brief interview here and there over the years, but mostly he disappeared from public life. He seemed like a man trying to escape something that had permanently embedded itself in his body. David Hahn died in September of 2016. He was 39 years old. The official cause of death was listed as acute combined drug and alcohol intoxication. But the people who had followed his story understood that his years of unprotected radiation exposure likely contributed to the deterioration of his health in ways that may never be fully documented. He was buried quietly. There was no ceremony, no recognition. The kid who had done something that nuclear engineers spend years trying to accomplish had lived and died without any real acknowledgement of what he had actually done. Now, I want to sit with the complexity of this story for a moment, because it's easy to make David Hahn into either a hero or a villain, and the truth is far more complicated than either of those things. He was, by any measure, a genius. Not the kind that gets celebrated, not the kind that gets a scholarship or a trophy, the kind that has no outlet, no guidance, no structure capable of containing the size of what he could do. His parents were divorced, his home life was unstable, and nobody around him had any idea what he was capable of. He poured himself into the Boy Scouts because it was the only institution that told him achievement mattered. And when he found nuclear science, he found something that matched the scale of his mind. But he also endangered dozens of people who had no idea they were being endangered. His neighbors had no choice in this. They didn't wake up one morning and decide to live next to a contaminated site. They were just people in houses near a shed where a teenager was slowly irradiating the surrounding area. That's not a small thing. That's the kind of thing that stays with a community long after the cleanup crews leave. And then there's the system. Because David didn't do this in total isolation. He did it with materials he purchased legally. He did it with information that organizations willingly handed over because he sounded convincing on paper. The regulatory frameworks that were supposed to prevent exactly this kind of situation failed completely, not because they were broken, but because nobody had ever thought to account for a 17-year-old with enough obsession and intelligence to game every single layer of oversight. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission changed some of its policies after the Hahn case. Procedures for distributing information became more careful. But the underlying question, what do you do with a mind like David's when there's no system equipped to hold it? That question never really got answered. This is History Veil, and that's exactly why we tell these stories. Not because they're comfortable, not because they have clean endings, but because the truth of what happened is more important than the version that makes everyone feel better. David Hahn built a nuclear reactor in a backyard shed at 17 years old. He contaminated his neighborhood. He was never charged. He spent the rest of his short life quietly coming apart, and the world mostly moved on. If you made it to the end of this video, I want you to think about something. Every institution David contacted trusted him because he presented himself correctly. The system that was supposed to catch this missed it entirely, and the only person who eventually got scared enough to try and stop it was David himself, a 17-year-old with a Geiger counter standing in a contaminated shed at night. That's the world we live in, and these are the stories we need to know. If this one hit different, share it. Drop a comment with what shocked you most. I genuinely read every single one. And subscribe to History Veil if you want more stories that cut through the surface and go somewhere real. We've got more coming, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's next. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and we'll see you in the next one.